You'd think actually dying would be the worst part of a heart attack. But it wasn't. For me, the worst part came after when I woke up in a hospital bed, my chest burning, machines beeping, and found out my wife had cleaned out our entire life savings while I was unconscious. My name's Cameron Doyle. I'm 45 years old and I've spent the last 22 of those years behind the wheel of a semi. I haul freight across the country. Nothing glamorous. Long hours, cheap coffee, empty motels. But it paid the bills and kept Dana, my wife, in a lifestyle she claimed to appreciate until the day she decided to erase me. The heart attack wasn't sudden. It had been building, whispering to me for weeks in the form of tightness in my chest and shortness of breath. I told myself it was stress or maybe too many energy drinks and late-night tacos. I ignored it like a man does until I couldn't anymore. It happened somewhere outside Omaha. The pain flared like fire across my ribs. I pulled over on the side of the interstate, still in my uniform, hands shaking as I dialed 911. They airlifted me to Sioux Falls. I don't remember the helicopter. I barely remember the ER. But I remember the doctor's face, stern and pale as she said, "We're losing him." I flatlined twice. That's what the nurse told me 2 days later when I woke up with tubes in my arms and a stent in my heart. They said I was lucky. But I didn't feel lucky when I reached for my phone. One message. One single text from Dana, my wife of 15 years. It wasn't "I love you." It wasn't "glad you're okay." It was a screenshot. Our joint bank account. $0. And below it a message, "I deserve this after everything I've done for you." Over $61,000. My emergency fund. My truck maintenance account. My retirement cushion. Every dollar I'd worked years for gone in one swipe. Not stolen by a stranger. Not hacked or skimmed. By her. I should have felt rage. I didn't. I just felt tired. Not sleepy tired. Not even the fatigue of recovery. I mean that deep, hollow exhaustion you get when the world tilts and you realize you've been walking in the wrong direction for a long time. I didn't respond to Dana with words. Just a single thumbs up emoji. Petty? Maybe. But it was all I had left to say. When the doctor came in, she gave me the usual instructions: rest, reduce stress, no driving for at least 6 weeks. "Is someone picking you up tomorrow?" she asked. Yeah, I lied. That night, I called my brother Jeff. He lived on the other side of town. We hadn't spoken in months, not because of any bad blood. Just life. Different paths. Different schedules. But when I said I needed a place to crash and asked him not to tell Dana, he didn't even hesitate. "She doesn't know you're alive?" he asked. "She knows," I said. "She just doesn't know I'm not coming home." Jeff is one of those people who says little but listens hard. He works construction. Been through 2 divorces. He knows how people disappoint you, how they unravel. When he helped me into the spare room at his place, he didn't ask for details. Just handed me a sandwich and said, "You should eat." I couldn't. The food turned to ash in my mouth. I was thinking about the house, my house actually, though Dana didn't know that. 3 months before the heart attack, I'd refinanced when rates dropped. Dana said she was too busy to come to the signing, so I did it alone, put it in my name. Better credit score. Easier process. She never asked for the paperwork. She also didn't know about the medical power of attorney I'd drawn up last year. My niece Megan, Jeff's daughter, helped me with it. Smart kid. Law student. After my buddy Tim had a stroke and his girlfriend couldn't make decisions for him, I got scared. Made sure I had my affairs in order. So technically, Dana didn't have the legal right to do anything while I was unconscious. But emotionally, that line had already been crossed long ago in ways I hadn't wanted to see. 3 days after I got out of the hospital, I got a text from Harold, our neighbor back in Sioux Falls. "Haven't seen you around. Everything okay? Dana's got some guy over. Thought you should know." I didn't reply. Just let the words sit there on the screen. Later that day, Jeff drove me to the downtown branch of our bank. Not the one Dana and I used. A different location where no one knew us. I asked to speak with someone in fraud. Showed them the message, explained I'd been incapacitated. The woman behind the desk didn't flinch. "Mr. Doyle, we can begin an investigation. But given it's a joint account, this may be difficult." "I understand," I said. "I want to try anyway." We started the paperwork. She told me we'd need documentation from the hospital, especially notes on when I was unconscious. No problem. I'd already started a folder. On the drive home, we stopped for gas. I stayed in the truck watching a dad walk out of the mini-mart with 2 ice cream cones, handing them to kids who smiled like the world was perfect. Normal life happening around me. I wondered if I'd ever have that again. That night, I made 3 calls. To my dispatcher, explaining I needed extended medical leave. To my small business credit union, updating access to accounts Dana never knew about. To Blake, a lawyer friend of Jeff's. I need to know where I stand, I told Blake. With the house, the accounts, all of it. We agreed to meet the next day. Then I opened my laptop, logged into investment accounts Dana didn't know existed. Not because I was hiding things, but because she'd never cared. Never asked. Never showed interest in the boring parts of our life. While I was scanning through statements, another text from Dana lit up the screen. Where are you? Your truck isn't at the depot. Did they tell you I came by? I didn't respond. Then another. Cameron, this is ridiculous. You can't just disappear. We need to talk about this. I closed the laptop. Looked at Jeff standing in the kitchen. She reaching out? Yeah. You going to respond? Not yet. That night, I went for a walk around Jeff's neighborhood. Quiet streets. Lawns just starting to green with the coming spring. I looked up at the stars faint behind the city lights, but still there. And for the first time since the heart attack, my chest didn't ache. Not physically, anyway. I realized something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even heartbroken. I was just done. And with that came a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in years. Dana hadn't just taken my money. She'd given me something else. My freedom. When someone betrays you, it doesn't always come with screaming matches or shattered plates. Sometimes it's quieter than that. A text. A lie. A polite smile from the man sleeping with your wife. And sometimes it's a folder sliding across a lawyer's desk that blows your world wide open. The next morning, I met Blake in his office. He was the kind of lawyer who wore jeans with his blazer, but everything about him said professional. Efficient. Tactical. He didn't waste time with sympathy. You need to know what you're up against, he said, handing me a folder thick with printouts. We start here. Inside were statements from all our joint accounts. Transfers. Withdrawals. Spikes in spending. A trail I hadn't noticed while I was driving across the country for weeks at a time. But Blake had. Let's talk about the house, he continued. Since you refinanced in only your name and with your medical episode on record, you have a strong claim to full possession. But we need to be strategic. Then he got to the part that made my stomach turn. You said your neighbor Harold texted you about some man at your house? Yeah. I've done some digging, Blake said. He pulled out another document, hotel receipts. Your wife stayed at a hotel in Minneapolis 3 months ago. Reservation was under the name Harold Jensen. Our neighbor. The same man who had texted me like he was concerned. Watching my house. Pretending to look out for me while he was sleeping with my wife. The betrayal wasn't just Dana's. It was coordinated. I sat there, gripping the edge of the desk until my knuckles went white. You okay? Blake asked. No, I said. But I will be. We started drafting the first motions, freezing the remaining assets, filing for emergency possession of the home, and documenting everything. Every transfer. Every signature. Every lie. Back at Jeff's, I sat in the guest room, folder open on the bed, staring at numbers I'd seen but never questioned. Every deposit I'd made. Every deduction Dana had justified as reallocating for better interest rates. I thought about all the nights I'd called her from the road. Nights she said she was with friends. Nights I believed her. Megan dropped by that evening. She was carrying her laptop, a bag of takeout, and the kind of determined energy that only comes from youth and knowing you're right. Okay, she said, opening her screen. Let's trace the money. We spent hours comparing my haul schedule with her transaction history. The patterns were undeniable. Regular deposits to a hidden account just under the $10,000 reporting threshold. And always when I was gone. She's been planning this for a while, I said. Megan shook her head. I don't think she was planning to leave. I think she was preparing in case you did. That hit harder than I expected. I wasn't a perfect husband. I was gone a lot. Tired when I was home. But I never lied. Never cheated. I worked. I showed up. I provided. She thought I'd leave her? I stared at the screen. She was never afraid I'd leave. She was afraid I'd wake up. A week passed. Then another. Dana texted more frequently. Each message a different mask. We need to talk. I was scared. You were distant. I ignored every one. Then came the knock. Dana showed up at Jeff's. She rang the bell 3 times. Knocked harder. I know you're in there, Cameron. Your truck's down the street. We need to talk. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. She left after 10 minutes. My phone buzzed. I'm sorry about the money. I thought you were cheating. I panicked. Please. Let's fix this. First time she accused me of cheating. Classic projection. I turned the phone face down. The next day, Blake called. She's hired Patricia Wells, he said. I felt the blood drain from my face. Wells was known as a shark. Aggressive. Ruthless. A reputation for draining every penny from her opponent. What does that mean for us? I asked. It means she's coming for everything. But we're ready. Blake had already filed for an emergency hearing. We'd go before a judge with everything we had, the timeline, the withdrawals, my hospitalization. We show that she exploited a medically incapacitated spouse, he said. Judges don't like that. I hung up and stared out the window. This wasn't just a marriage ending. It was a war. They say knowledge is power. But what they don't tell you is that knowing the truth about someone you loved, it doesn't feel like power. It feels like grief. Until one day, it stops hurting and starts sharpening into something else, resolve. 3 days after Blake dropped the bomb about Patricia Wells, we met again in his office. This time, he looked energized. She's already moving money, he said, pointing to a highlighted set of transactions Megan helped uncover. Small amounts. Different accounts. Classic shell game. She's getting ready to run, I said quietly. She's trying to. But we won't let her. Blake and Megan worked in tandem, he handling the filings, she chasing paper trails. I stayed focused. Recovery, rest, and keeping my head clear. Dana didn't know half of what we were building behind the scenes. And then came Harold. Jeff drove me past the old neighborhood one afternoon. That's new, he said, pointing. A for sale sign sat planted in Harold's lawn. My gut twisted. He's liquidating, Jeff muttered. Cutting and running. Later that night, Megan confirmed it. Harold had moved almost $90,000 in cashier's checks. Untraceable. Silent. Planning a quiet exit. I called Blake. We need to move. I agree. But we can't jump too soon. We need leverage. Something they can't explain away. I thought about it all night. About the property upgrades. The new shed. The landscaping. The little luxuries Harold had helped with while I was hauling freight across state lines. Upgrades paid for with my money. The next day, I drove out to the house when I knew Dana would be at work. Didn't go inside. Just walked the property line. Took photos of everything Harold's hands had touched. I sent them to Blake with a message. Documented. 2 days later, Dana's attorney called Blake. She wanted to settle. Dana was offering to return half the withdrawn funds if I agreed to give her 50% equity in the house. Blake scoffed. They're testing us. Seeing if we'll fold early. What do we say? Nothing. Let them sweat. Meanwhile, I made another move. I called my company's HR department. Explained my medical condition. Asked about the long-term disability insurance I'd paid into for 2 decades. You're entitled to 60% of your salary for up to a year, the woman said. Your medical file qualifies you easily. Another stream of income Dana didn't know about. She was still playing checkers. I was playing chess. A week later, Jeff drove us by the house again. Dana's car was in the driveway. So was the black Audi. Harold's. I didn't stop. But I circled the block. Back at Jeff's, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. This is Patricia Wells. I represent Dana Doyle. Any further surveillance of my client will be documented as harassment. All communication must go through legal channels. So, they were watching me too. Fine. Let them. 2 weeks after our last meeting, the emergency hearing was scheduled. Dana showed up with Wells in a sharp navy suit. I wore my funeral tie. The one I kept in my truck for when bad news hit on the road. The Judge Harmon looked over the documents in silence. Occasionally glanced up at Dana. Then at me. Ms. Wells, he said, did your client withdraw the full contents of these joint accounts while Mr. Doyle was unconscious from a cardiac event? Wells cleared her throat. Yes, Your Honor. But my client was under emotional duress. She feared the marriage was ending. Judge Harmon frowned. While her husband was incapacitated in a hospital bed? Wells didn't answer. I'm ordering the funds frozen, he said. No one touches that money until a full hearing determines rightful ownership. It wasn't a win. But it was a pause. A line in the sand. As we walked out of court, Dana tried to speak to me. Wells held her back, but I heard the words anyway. Cameron, please. There's so much you don't understand. I didn't stop. Didn't look at her. Didn't need to. Outside, Blake patted my shoulder. Now, he said, we begin discovery. Discovery. The part where the masks come off. There's a moment in every unraveling where the threads stop slipping loose and start snapping. One by one. That's when the truth stops being something whispered behind closed doors and becomes something sharp enough to draw blood. A week after the emergency hearing, Blake called me into his office. We found something, he said, sliding a folder across the desk. Inside, a bank statement from a hidden account I didn't recognize. Dana's name on it. The balance, $127,340.56. Where did this come from? I asked, even though I already knew. Megan, Blake said. Her internship at the credit union downtown gave her just enough access to cross-reference some flagged patterns. This account's been active for over a year and a half. I stared at the balance. My chest tightened, not from pain. From understanding. She was stashing money behind my back? Always just under 10,000 per deposit. Structured to avoid detection. Textbook laundering behavior. She wasn't planning to leave, Blake said. She was preparing in case you did. I swallowed hard. It made sense in a twisted way. Dana always thought in terms of control. Power. Position. She was building an escape hatch in case I turned around and walked away first. But that wasn't the only thing in the folder. Blake handed me another paper. A hotel receipt. Harold Jensen's name. Minneapolis. 3 months ago. I was in Seattle that week, I said, the words sticking to my throat. Blake nodded slowly. We think Harold's been involved with Dana longer than either of them admit. He was probably planting doubt in your head while he was sleeping in your bed. I leaned back in the chair. She wasn't just disloyal. She was calculated. And she didn't do it alone. Back at Jeff's, I couldn't sit still. I paced. Went over every conversation I'd ever had with Harold. Every backyard barbecue. Every nod across the driveway. He played the part perfectly. Concerned neighbor. Friendly advice. All while orchestrating a con behind my back. And Dana? She didn't just fall for him. She let him help destroy what I'd spent my life building. That night, I stood outside looking up at the stars again. Only this time, there was no ache in my chest. Just cold focus. The next morning, I went back to Blake's with an idea. I want to record them, I said. Blake raised an eyebrow. You can't wiretap. That's illegal. I don't need to. I'll film them in public. He gave a slow nod. If you can prove they're in a romantic relationship, it undermines everything Dana's said in court. Especially if she continues to claim there's nothing going on. I waited 2 days. Then I drove to our old house. Parked down the block. Waited. Just after 1 p.m. Dana pulled into the driveway. Harold was already there. They didn't kiss. But they embraced, too close for old friends. Then they argued. I recorded 30 seconds of it from a distance. Didn't need sound. Their body language told the whole story. I sent the video to Blake. Perfect timing, he replied. Judge Harmon's mood is already sour this week. 2 days later, we were in chambers. No courtroom. No audience. Just the judge, both lawyers, Dana, and me. Harold wasn't allowed in. Blake queued up the video. The judge leaned in to watch. When it ended, Harmon turned slowly to Wells. Your client has sworn there is no personal relationship with Mr. Jensen. Would you like to amend that statement? Wells cleared her throat, flustered. Your Honor, the nature of their relationship isn't materially relevant. It is, Harmon cut in, when financial fraud is involved. Mr. Doyle was unconscious. His wife drained their accounts. Now she's seen arguing with the man who may have aided in moving that money. I find that relevant. Dana looked like she'd shrunk 2 inches in her chair. Are you planning to leave the state with Mr. Jensen, Mrs. Doyle? Dana's mouth opened. No words came out. The judge didn't wait. I'm issuing an emergency freeze on all assets connected to both Dana Doyle and Harold Jensen. Neither of them may sell property, access large funds, or leave the county without court permission. Furthermore, Mr. Doyle is granted temporary exclusive access to the marital home. Dana let out a soft, choked sound. Wells tried to object. The judge raised a hand. You're lucky I'm not referring this for criminal charges, counselor. Blake kept his expression neutral. But when we stepped outside, he looked at me. That video changed everything. I nodded. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was defending myself anymore. I was winning. You don't always hear the moment justice begins. Sometimes it's a court order, a frozen bank account, a woman blinking in disbelief as she realizes the lies she built her future on are crumbling beneath her. That's what justice sounded like in my life silence. 3 months after the hospital, I moved back into the house. My house. Judge's orders. The moment I stepped through the door, everything felt different. Same furniture. Same photos on the wall. But the air was stale, like the house itself had held its breath, waiting to see who would come home. I didn't touch Dana's things. I packed them neatly into boxes, left them in the garage. She never came to collect them. Sent a courier instead. That was fine. Easier, really? The silence was hard the first few nights. After years of background noise, her laughter, her music, even her complaints, quiet felt foreign. But slowly it became mine. Jeff came over often. Megan too. She brought her laptop, helped finalize documentation for Blake. We sat in the kitchen and made lists of accounts, dates, passwords. Turned pain into paper trails. You're going to come out ahead, Blake said one evening over coffee. Judges hate manipulation. And everything Dana did, the money, the deception, plays directly into that. I wanted to believe him. Part of me still expected some twist, some reversal. But so far, the tide hadn't turned against me. Not yet. Then came the letter. From Wells. Dana had agreed to settle. The terms, she'd forfeit her claim to the house and accept a 20% share of the joint assets. In exchange, I would drop all pursuit of criminal charges or further civil action. She'd keep her car, her personal accounts. I asked Blake what he thought. She's cornered, he said. And she knows it. You'd be within your rights to push harder. But if we accept this, it ends now. I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, let's finish it. The settlement was finalized in under a month. I got the house, my truck, 80% of the savings. The rest of the hidden account was split after Dana paid my legal fees from her share. She signed over the last documents without a fight. The last I heard, she'd moved to Minneapolis. Alone. I never spoke to her again. Not once. 6 months after moving back in, I sold the house. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. I bought a smaller place on the other side of town closer to Jeff and Megan. Less yard. Fewer rooms. But it was mine in a way nothing had been in years. I gave Megan a check from the sale. Helped her cover the last of her law school tuition. You didn't have to, she said. You saved me, I replied. It's only fair. She hugged me for the first time in years. And I felt something inside me shift. I don't drive long haul anymore. My doctor said my heart couldn't take the stress. I believed him. So I took a job dispatching instead. Still trucks. Still routes. But I'm home every night now. The nights are quiet. I keep the TV low. Brew real coffee instead of gas station sludge. Read more. Think more. I don't date yet. Not because I'm scared. Just content. People ask if I'm angry. I'm not. Not anymore. Because I survived something most people never see coming. Not the heart attack. The betrayal. And I didn't just survive. I rebuilt. Some stories don't end with revenge or reconciliation. Sometimes they just end quietly with a man alone in a kitchen, sipping black coffee, realizing he doesn't need to get back what he lost. Because what he rebuilt, it's stronger. It's been a year. A full calendar since that morning I woke up in the hospital and realized everything I thought was stable had already collapsed. People still ask me if I'd do anything differently. If I miss her. If I'd ever take her back. No. I don't hate Dana. Not anymore. Hatred is too heavy. And I've carried enough weight across the country in the back of a semi to know when to drop a load. I let it go. What I've learned since all of this. Most people don't cheat because they're bored. Or lonely. They cheat because they want a shortcut to feeling powerful again. They want to rewrite their own narrative without doing the work. Dana wanted that. Harold gave it to her. But shortcuts never last. And now she's gone. And I'm still here. I wake up earlier than I used to. No alarm. Just habit. I sit at my small kitchen table, windows open, and watch the streetlights fade as the sun rises. The quiet used to scare me. Now it comforts me. I've learned how to cook for one. I've even started keeping a little herb garden on my windowsill. Basil. Rosemary. Mint. Little signs of life growing from dirt. Megan graduated at the top of her class. She works at a firm downtown now. Smart, steady, lethal in cross-examinations. She drops by sometimes. Brings me coffee. Asks how I'm doing. I tell her the truth. Better than I've ever been. Every now and then I drive past the old neighborhood. The house has new owners. The paint is different. They've got toys in the yard, kids. A new life planted where mine was ripped out. I don't feel anger when I see it. Just gratitude. That chapter's over. Done. Put back on the shelf. The road ahead? Still uncertain. But I'm not afraid of it anymore. Because this time I'm driving with my eyes open. There's a box in my closet I haven't touched in months. It has our wedding album. Old letters. A dried flower from Dana's bouquet. I keep it. Not because I want to remember what we were, but because it reminds me how far I've come since. She thought she was taking everything from me. She was wrong. She left me with exactly what I needed, the truth. The fire. The will to stand up and start again. And I did. Not perfectly. Not quickly. But completely. This is my life now. Simple. Steady. Mine. And for the first time in years. That's enough.